Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and feel free to post those in the chat. I should be able, I've got the chat up. I've had some issues with folks. I've done a couple of these so far with other programs that I work with, and I've had some issues with folks seeing the itinerary, so I'm going to go ahead and not post it in the chat, but I'm going to follow along. And if you need it, I can always send that in the follow-up email along with the link when I get that out to our families. So hello and good evening, everyone. I am Coach Jess. I coach our 16 Run team at Alliance. I also handle our recruiting. I have been with Alliance, gosh, I think this is my 5th year now overall. I was originally with Alliance back at the start in year 1, was actually a board member to help form Alliance when Impact and Select came together. And then once Coach Ann and Abby took over the program, it just made sense, and it was really good timing for me to jump back in and just be a part of the awesome things that I think Alliance is doing with Nashville volleyball. So I'm really excited to be a part, and very fortunate and blessed. It's been an awesome journey to be a part of this club. So the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is my recruiting assistant. I know that you guys have kind of seen that either on social media or you've kind of seen it in my emails or on this Zoom. And so what is my recruiting assistant? I think it was last year, the year before, Abby had come to me in the office and asked if there was any way that I could start working with those outside of Alliance and be compensated for that. So it was a little bit more of a benefit, just, for me to be a part, of Alliance and working with our athletes. And so a friend of mine, the Belmont head coach, actually connected me with a lady named Lauren Hansen, who has done college recruiting. And she just basically said a lot of the stuff that we do is very similar, just in terms of how we approach college recruiting, how we work with athletes. And Lauren and I hit it off, and she actually asked me to be a part of her company. And so what that means for Alliance is we're kind of blanketed under MRA. And we get to, just use their different social media outlets for additional marketing. It's nice because at MRA, we have a team. We have about 5 staff members that work with various athletes and clubs all across the country. So for me, it's given me, I would say, just kind of like this upper hand knowledge of really what's going on in the recruiting world across the country. And a lot of times, there may be an athlete that we have that's looking at a certain program, or maybe another athlete that we kind of find out that's maybe a little bit higher on a school's list. So it's kind of, allowed us to kind of have some inside information and just extend our reach as to what's going on. And also just, really able to build more connections with various college programs across the country. So you guys will see MRA a lot. We tried to have a really big social media presence, and the My Recruiting Assistant social media presence is a lot bigger than, ours at Alliance. So it does, help give our athletes and our club additional exposure, which has been really nice, especially coming off of a time where recruiting has been, really virtual based, during COVID. I think that's going to be a trend that's going to stick around for a while. So there's a lot of benefits behind that. It's at no additional cost to you guys. The only thing that we do charge for is if you ever want us to do a highlight video, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but there's nothing required, for Alliance to be a part of My Recruiting Assistant. Everyone should have my contact information. I'm going to go ahead and post that really quick in the chat, just in case anyone needs it, but it's on my email signature. My email address is also one of those with Alliance. So if you guys ever have any issues getting a hold of me, I try to be pretty available. There are some times where I am on a court coaching. Alliance is not my full-time job. This is one of the few part-time jobs that I partake in. I am a full-time college coach at Fisk University. So sometimes I do get a little bit busy, especially in the off season when I am in my college season. That tends to be more of a focus, but right now I'm able to shift gears and put a lot more time and attention into Alliance, with my club team. So I'm very grateful for Fisk to allow me that flexibility. So, all right. Getting started. So what we're all here to learn and to talk about recruiting. I like all my families to start the process and just really just sit down together as a family, and just kind of talk about, what college looks like. I think that there's things that, as these athletes are navigating, that you as mom and dad can really help out with, and I think areas that you guys can be beneficial. And I think that there's some things that you guys probably should be on the same page about, when you're starting the recruiting process. A lot of times the younger athletes, they're really kind of unsure about, what they want to major in. And so, kind of starting that dialogue with your kid of, what are some academic areas that you may be interested in, or, hey, you've been really good in the sciences, or, you've got a math mind, or, just kind of helping them talk through and, and navigating that. That's not always necessarily something that they need to know, when they're starting, but it is helpful if they kind of at least can have an idea of, a major or maybe an area that they might, have an interest in. That typically will help when we start building their target list. Another thing that you guys need to discuss is distance. Moms and dads, you guys always have a comfort level, with what you guys feel comfortable with, allowing your kid to go distance wise. So I think that's good, getting on the same page. And I think even on the flip side, I've had some athletes who really want to stay close to home. And I've had some parents that are like, yeah, I think you're going to come home too much, and I think you need to grow and spread your wings. So, just kind of talking about that. I've also had some kids that are like, I'm going cross country, or I'm going to go to school in downtown New York. And sometimes the parents are like, I'm a little unsure about that. So, it's really good to just be on the same page, with that when you begin. Another important one is finances. And this looks different for everybody. And I know everybody, they're wanting to go to college for free. That's not always necessarily realistic. I think especially right now, with every athlete who's playing college ball, they've been given an extra year of eligibility back, if they were playing during the COVID time. So, as terms of finances, there is less money available. That doesn't mean that there's no money available, but that just means that compared to previous years, there's not as much, that there's been in the past. So, what does that look like for you guys? Is your daughter going to have to come out of pocket the difference? Do you guys have money that's, saved up, built up, whatever your family financial situation is, that's just good, to make sure that everybody's on the same page, starting off. I think some other factors that you guys can talk about are just, potential level, Division I, Division II, what that looks like. And, I take a look at where our athletes at Alliance have gone in the past. I think we have a big, broad range, of where we've sent kids. So, it doesn't necessarily mean you're on a one team, you're going Division I. We've had, one team kids go, Division III. We've had 2 team kids commit to Division I schools. So it just kind of depends on, what is the right fit. And, I think another thing where parents, you can really help your daughters with, is, helping them decide what they kind of want their role and their experience to be. When they go off to college, like, do they want to be a freshman that's maybe sitting the bench, for a couple years, that has to really fight for their play time, but the level of the team is really good. Maybe your daughter has spent time on the bench and she's been really miserable. So, that's not a good fit. So, maybe you can encourage her to go to a program that's, maybe a little bit more appropriate to her level, where she can find a place that maybe she can, get in and be a starter, as a freshman, or, be an impact player younger. So I think everyone's answer is going to be different on that. I think it's good at some point in time to, really kind of set realistic expectations. A lot of times athletes, Marisol, I'm muting you. I think a lot of times athletes, especially sometimes our athletes, will get stars in their eyes for, a level or division, and they don't necessarily realize or understand, they might go to a program where they're spending time on the bench. And if you're one of the better players that's coming out of your high school or, out of your club team, sometimes that can be a really different experience that you're not necessarily used to. So starting to think about some of those things. So the first part in the process, you're going to want to start to build your target list, obviously considering the above factors that we talked about. But I think it's also good to consider other things, like the size of the school, a big school, small school. I went to a small college. I went to Lipscomb, which at the time Lipscomb was a lot smaller than it was now. I coach at a small college. I do think that there are some, really big benefits to being an athlete at a smaller school, just in terms of, the personal touch, being able to know your professors when you're traveling as much as you do. But we've also had athletes that have gone to, really big programs, and they've had, different academic support or, different things available to them. So, consider the size of the school setting, I think, is another good one to consider. An urban setting, a rural setting, a suburban setting, majors, good. That needs to be on there. We need to really make sure, I know sometimes we can get a little bit excited about the volleyball piece, but, we always want to make sure in the back of our minds that we are staying academically focused first. Volleyball is not going to pay probably, all our kids' bills who are going off to college. So they're probably not choosing a profession like mine. So we want to make sure that academics, stay in the forefront of that. I've sent all this stuff out too, just on building. So I'm going to kind of brush over this. But one website, and this has been around since I was looking to go in college. So that's been a minute, but collegeboard.org, and it has nothing to do with volleyball. It is an academic website, and they have a great college search option on there. Use it from a desktop or a laptop computer, and just plug in the different search criteria and just see, kind of what's out there. You can build by location. You can even add volleyball in there and, search by the different divisions. So it's a really good website. And I can tell you this, that I've been doing this job for a really long time. And there are so many schools, so many programs out there. Like, I hear from colleges daily that I'm like, I've never even heard of that school. So you'd be surprised. I know a lot of our kids, they tend to start building their target list based on the schools that they know, which a lot of times kind of tends to be like those SEC schools. We're not historically sending all of our kids, out to the SEC every year. So we want to make sure that the list stays broad. When you're building your target list, the bigger, the better. The more options you have, I think the more successful that your process is going to be. Typically, when you have a very narrow, or you're very limiting, you're gonna struggle in this process. So, just keep in mind that not every school that's on your list may be recruiting your position for your class, and so you want to have a lot of options on there. And I think especially the younger you are, if you're one of our 24 or 25 athletes, have a big old list on there, because really at this point in time, you have no idea what you want. And so I think it's good, have schools on there that are, big, small, urban setting, rural setting, see every types of school, learn about all these different types of schools so you can really start forming what it is that you actually want. 3 categories that I like our athletes to have is these dream schools, realistic schools, which are more at your level, and then also a backup. And so that backup school is, if we get into another pandemic, or you come to your, right before signing your senior year and, you tear your ACL, or, maybe a family member gets sick, just a place that, you without a shadow of a doubt, if something happens, you can go, you can play at, and you can get an education. So again, that education piece needs to be, at the forefront. That needs to be the most important thing. And I'm going to kind of sidebar here for some of our younger athletes and our younger parents. It's important for you guys to know you're going to get questionnaires. You're going to get interest letters from a lot of different types of schools, a lot of probably bigger schools. And that does not necessarily mean that they are recruiting your kid. Alliance is a very well-known club, and we have Logan Eggleston, who is at Texas. And so that kind of gives us a lot of street cred, for amongst, a lot of these bigger schools. So a lot of times, like these big programs, they want to build their database and see how kids grow and develop. So just because you get on an interest list, or just because you get a camp invite when you're younger, that does not necessarily mean that a school is recruiting you. So you will know on June 15th of your sophomore year, based on the, the coaches that call you, the interaction you have following that, who will actually be recruiting you. So, be excited when that stuff comes along, but also, stay grounded, stay humble, stay realistic. Parents, that's going to be on you guys, just to make sure, with your kids that, you kind of keep them down to earth. So if they're hearing from, some big time school, obviously entertain their dreams. I think that's really good, to do. For me, I was going to UCLA until I didn't grow past 5'9", and UCLA just never emailed me back. So, at some point in time, you're gonna have to focus on a realistic option, and everyone's kid is gonna fall realistically at the level that they're at. And probably one of the number one questions that I get when building a target list, what types of schools should I have, or, what level should I have? Have a well-represented list on there. If you're completely unsure, add Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior college, if you're going to entertain that route, and see where your daughter falls. I will be honest with you. I've worked with athletes where, I thought a kid could play at a certain level, and maybe she didn't go that high. And on the flip side, I've worked with athletes where I didn't think they were going to go as high as they could. So what every college coach is looking for is different, and you never really know who's going to like your kid. So it's kind of like shopping. It's, kind of like going through job interviews. A lot of this is going to be relationship building, getting to know these coaches, getting to know these programs, and just kind of seeing, which shoe fits at the end of the day. Once you guys start working on your target list, the next most important thing that you need to work on is your university athlete profile. So what is UA? UA was actually developed by a college coach for college coaches. And so whenever you're at one of those big tournaments and you see these college coaches that are sitting there on their cell phones, they're looking at university athletes. So university athlete is tied into rosters of basically the large events, some of the smaller ones. It just kind of depends. And it has it just really helps us as coaches stay organized. So we can tag athletes that we might be interested in. We can make notes. If I have an assistant coach that's out at a tournament, she can take notes. We can see that. We can see all the communication that we've had for, to and from the athlete. So it's just a really great recruiting resource that we have. It is free. So there is a paid version. You do not need that, but you do want to make sure that your contact information is up to date in UA, especially if you came to us from another club. So every athlete, regardless of whether or not you access your university athlete profile, has one if you're playing in like a big tournament, and most of our teams do at some point in time. So I would say, like, example, any of the qualifiers that we go to, Bluegrass, let's see, the Music City qualifier, the AAU super regional event, like all those will most likely be tied into university athlete for the weekend. So you just want to make sure that your information is up to date, because if a college coach comes and maybe they're there watching someone else on the other team, but they're, they are watching and they really like you and they tag you in UA, if your information is not on there, most of the time it'll get to either myself or Ann. And then, we both forward it along to you, but it's always nice when you're able to get that communication for yourself. The next thing that I'm going to tackle, and I sent this information out today, is highlight film. And in this day of age, nobody should come at me and say, well, I don't have film. We are literally coming off of COVID. Somebody somewhere recorded for your team, whether it be in high school or club last year. You all have access to film. You just need to hunt it down. Do not email a college coach without having, highlight film available. I'm going to repeat myself. Do not email or reach out to college coaches until you have highlight video ready and available. That's going to be the thing that coaches ask you. And if you don't have it ready, the turnaround time that it's going to take for you to get it ready, the coach is already going to lose interest in you. So that's one thing that you want to have included on every single email that you send out. I sent out a breakdown of, what the highlight film should include. You also want to make sure that you have unedited game film. You do not need to email that unedited game film out in your emails, just have it available. So a lot of times what'll happen is, if a coach is interested, they will, watch the highlight video. If they're like, hey, I like this kid, I want to see a little bit more, they may ask to, they may ask to see what, unedited game film that you have, and then they may take the next step to try to come watch you in person. So having both of those available and ready is going to be important. YouTube, I think, is the best. It's the best thing to view film. It's free, it's easy. As a college coach, it is always the easiest platform for me to view film on. I know a lot of folks have Huddle with high school, or use maybe Sports Recruits from another. They are a pain in the butt, and they have so many commercials, and it just takes time, into us watching, a kid. So if there's all this like, commercial stuff that comes up, it's just going to take away from your daughter, or from you as an athlete. So you want to make sure, that stuff is easy. College coaches, we feel like our time is so much more important than everybody else's. Sorry, that's kind of how they are. And so you just want to make sure that stuff is just easily and ready available, for coaches to view. What I also like about YouTube is there's an easy sharing feature. So I can typically go in and just link stuff from any of our athletes' accounts to our Alliance recruiting one. We typically have college coaches that go in and they'll just kind of browse around and see the different athletes. And I tend to load up film throughout the season on there. Just unedited game film whenever a coach requests it. So, I try to stay pretty active on there. And then also, it's having film that's available in blocks of time. So once you post a highlight video, keep it on there and then update, I would say every 3 to 4 months. And then that way coaches can see a progression of how you're growing and how you're progressing. I will use Sanaa Williams on our 18 Ren team for an example. With that, her highlight video kind of before coaches could go out and recruit. And then her highlight video that she sent out right before coaches were allowed to come back out, there was such a vast improvement between those. And coaches just got really excited when they saw how much that she grew. So just being able to have those that coaches can look back on and just see, okay, what does this kid's ceiling look like? How are they growing? How are they progressing? So all that's good. So if you have a highlight video, that's an old one, don't take it down, leave it up there. Let coaches be able to browse, but once you get new and updated ones, continue to send those out. Kind of my communication basics. So it's really important to stay organized when you start, and especially I would say those who are sophomores, juniors, and especially the seniors, as you kind of start really getting deep into recruiting. You will have conversations or maybe emails with coaches, and sometimes it's really easy to forget either when you send out an email or what kind of conversation or what details came out of that conversation with a coach. So I did email out a target list kind of template, but really, to be honest with you, like whatever works for you guys, that's fine. Just make sure that you are organized, make sure that you are kind of frequently keeping an eye on the coaches at the various programs. There is usually a big college coach shuffle that takes place this time of year. So there's a lot of, head coach jobs that are open right now, people going to different places, a lot of assistants. So it's just a good idea, to just kind of browse those college websites, make sure, that your list is updated. So when you go to email the coaches, you're actually emailing the right people. I can't tell you how many times I have received emails from kids and they're to someone who either hasn't been on staff for years, or they're reaching out to a completely different school and they just didn't update me. So, make sure when you're emailing, you're actually emailing the correct program. And then some things, hold on, I got a question. Okay. One of the things to include, or what to include on your email, you want to make sure that it's specific for each school or program. Social media outlets can be really good for that. A lot of schools just kind of update, big moments, or a lot of information on there. So, for you girls who like to be on social media, go for it. Find the schools on your target list. And just see some different things. And then also, don't just email about volleyball. We want to know that you've done your homework on the school. So make sure that they have, the major that you want, and include that in there. If you're, interested in nursing, make sure, and they've got athletes on their roster who have done, nursing, or who are going through the nursing program, send that out in an email, something that's, really specific and detailed, that shows the coach that you've spent some time to actually do your research. And that's what you guys are going to kind of find. Like, you actually have to do your research and you actually have to do work when it comes to recruiting. You've got to spend some time on this, if you want to be successful in the process. When you walk into a tournament and there's all these hundreds of kids and, 120 plus courts, it's not real easy for a coach to just find you, so you want to make sure that you are emailing and that you are being consistent so the coach knows that you're there, and that you fit maybe what they're looking for. Keep that email short and sweet. Make sure to include your academic info, your athletic info, why you're emailing, why you think their program might be a good fit for you. And again, always include that highlight video link. And then parents, this is a big one for you guys. Communication has to come from the athlete. Do not write emails for them. Do not send them from your email. Do not write them for them and then send it from their email. Coaches know. So the athlete needs to do the work. You as mom and dad can proofread the email. I do think it's a good practice, parents. We want our athletes to get in the habit of communicating back to coaches within 24 hours. Checking their email isn't necessarily a habit that most of them have developed. So I think it's a good idea for you guys to just maybe check in on their email and be sure to check their spam or their junk folders, because sometimes emails, can get caught up in there. So you just want to make sure that, they are staying on top of, just communicating with coaches. And sometimes what I've seen happen is, maybe a kid gets an email from a school that they've never heard of. I know that this school fits everything on their list, but they're like, I've never heard of, I'll use Lipscomb. I've never heard of Lipscomb University before, so they won't email the coach back. And, so they lose out on an opportunity that may be a very good one for them. So, you as a parent, stay on them and, just make sure that they're really looking into every opportunity that comes across. I think you guys would be surprised. There are so many programs and schools out there, and all these colleges are very competitive. So what folks are offering these days, there's just a lot. There's a lot that's available, so just really being able to be open is going to be, it's going to help you have success in your journey. And so next up, we got kind of the resources, or I guess what I help out with. So typically whatever area, or I guess part of the process that the athlete has questions with, and moms and dads, it's really important that your daughter stays in the driver's seat of this journey. I've sometimes have parents who are really overly excited about the recruiting process, but maybe their daughter's not ready yet. If they're not, don't push them. Trust me, recruiting is hard. It is very, sometimes emotionally and just mentally draining. And if they're not ready to go through that, don't push them yet. We still have seniors who are uncommitted. And actually, that reminds me, well, I'm going to segue. We have a kid who is announcing, one of our seniors who is announcing their commitment tonight. So I'm not going to say who it is. I'm going to let her post, but we are almost done with our seniors. But, to segue with that, like whenever they're ready to start the recruiting process, kind of let them take the reins on that. College coaches aren't really interested in hearing from you as mom and dad. And I want them to be able to interact with me directly. And part of that is they need to start developing some of these skills of, how to talk to adults, how to start navigating, some of these things. And, that's what I'm here for. I'm this buffer, I'm this resource. My job is to make sure that they're confident, every step of the way. If your kid is having concerns or frustrations and they haven't come talk to me yet, be sure to let me know. They shouldn't be, I would say the recruiting process, it's going to frustrate you sometimes. And sometimes it's going to, mentally knock you down. You may get some no's. But if they're ever feeling stuck or, maybe like they're just not finding, the right fit schools, be sure to fill me in. That way we can, make sure that they're finding what, we're finding either a good, approach to, how to open some more doors. Maybe we need to broaden our list. Maybe we need to open, some areas that maybe we were a little bit too narrow. So there's always different things, to navigate, and maybe it's just too early. Sometimes athletes, they develop at, at very different parts of their career. So maybe they're just, kind of still growing, and maybe we just kind of need to hold off a little bit. So our 22, and just to kind of break this down, our 22 class, I'm actively working with those girls right now. They are the priority, in our club. So I think if you guys were, parents of seniors, I think you would appreciate that. So we want to make sure that all of our senior classes wrapped up. So they're getting a lot of my time and my attention right now. And we're pretty close. And then next, we're really going to, kind of hammer things hard for the 23 class. The 24s, this is going to be a big year for some of our sophomore class. Some of you parents might be sitting here and think, well, sophomore year, it's a little bit early. For some of our athletes, yes, for some of them, no. We had some kids that did commit, pretty close in the summertime after June 15th of their sophomore year. And then we have some kids that just, weren't ready to make decisions yet. And, so they're going into their junior year and, and that's okay. Everyone's journey is going to be a little bit different. The 25, so our freshmen, you guys are, I don't want to say on the back burner, but you're on the back burner. So you guys are just going to be receiving education only this year. And the reason for that, like a lot of the new recruiting rules that have kind of taken place, it's really slowed down the process. So, you guys have heard me throw out this June 15th date, and Division I coaches cannot contact you with the intent of like recruiting. So they can send questionnaires, they can send, just kind of general interest about a school before that June 15th date of your sophomore year, but they cannot actively have like phone conversations. They cannot like be responding back like, hey, we're interested in you until that June 15th date. Now, other divisions have flexibility. However, most aren't recruiting that young. So it's really slowed down for the 25. So if you are a freshman parent listening to this, like the thing that I really want you guys to focus on this year, like academics, that needs to be the biggest priority. Be as good as you can be in the classroom. As someone who sits and watches a lot of these packages, get built, and a lot of people think that, oh, these kids are getting 4-year full rides, and that's typically not the case. There's a lot of times where academics come into place. So put yourself in the best possible position and be really strong academically all throughout your high school career. I promise you, having good grades is not going to be something that you're ever going to regret. And then enjoy playing volleyball, learning, growing, developing. And I would say even, and this kind of goes for everybody if you're kind of just starting the process this year, when we travel or we go to these places, like start getting on some college campuses. This doesn't have to be volleyball specific, but start helping your kid form what it is that they want in a college. So get them at a big school, get them on a small school. We're very fortunate here in Nashville. We've got like such a good concentration of a lot of different colleges. We have big ones, we have small ones, private schools, public schools. We've got everything. So take some time and, start visiting those schools. Every school typically has an admissions department that offers campus tours, sign up with them and just, go see what is offered there, go see dorms, go see cafeterias, go see all the other things that don't necessarily have to do with volleyball. So you can start forming what it is that you're actually looking for. Parents, I know I've kind of hounded you guys on this being an athlete driven process, but also want to remind you that, just make sure that you guys are aware of, your actions, your words when you are at tournaments. I think, we as Alliance, we want to make sure that we're ultimately very protective of our culture. We want to make sure that we're building each other up, not tearing each other down. I know that, in any sport, frustrations are going to happen, right? But wait till you get in the car to let any of the crazy out. I can't tell you, and this is on both sides. I have had kids that I have been, recruiting as a college coach, and we have, sometimes had, athletes within our own club, that a college coach has come by and, maybe they've heard a parent say something, or, maybe they saw a parent coaching their kid during a match and the kid is spending more time looking at their parent instead of being engaged. Like that stuff is red flags. So the best parent is the one that sits there, cheers on everybody, is just super supportive, and don't be a distraction to your kid. When they're there to play volleyball, you are mom and dad, you are not coach. and let their coach be coach, and you just get to be mom and dad. So I think that's one of the best things that you can do. Also film. That's also one thing that you can do as a parent. So filming, and again, in this day of age, it's not super hard, to sit there with your iPhone. In almost every video that I sent out today in the email and the highlight videos, almost every single one of those was done from a cell phone. So it's pretty easy today to be able to get some of this stuff, but those are the probably the more major roles that you can do as a parent. And let me see. I think the other thing that I've kind of touched on this again, but just make sure that you guys know that the recruiting journey it's a process. Make sure that we are keeping recruiting conversations, just within our own family, within myself, or, within the coaches of your team. Try not to compare. I think one, that the comparing or the jealousy that sometimes can happen, it's negative. And I think it just takes the focus off of, what the athlete is really trying to go for. And we don't know, what, so-and-so is looking at, or, what, major they want, or, what their family situation is. Everybody is so different. So don't compare. The only important journey, that you're going on in this is yours. So just focus on, the important things to your process, what important factors, are for you. And then whenever we have someone commit in the club, like, that's awesome for everybody. The more exposure we have, the more kids that we have playing at the next level, that's just exciting. So, we just want to be excited for everybody, the more doors that we can open, no matter of the level. And you guys are never going to hear from me. Like, I'm never going to push a kid to a certain level. We had athletes this year compete in the Division III national championship. We actually had one kid that was on a team that I coached that was the MVP of her conference this year at the Division III level. So, and then, everybody here knows Logan Eggleston that's at Texas. Like, we've got kids that are representing at all these different levels and in between, and none of them are more exciting than the other. I mean, the fact that we're sending kids off to college and they're doing big things in their life and on the court and in the classroom, we're just excited that, we're fortunate enough to be a part of that journey. So, okay, so lots of information today, kind of your checklist following this meeting. Make sure you guys sit down as a family, get yourselves on the same page, talk about those finances, distance, majors, all those important things about what college will look like at the next level. Start creating that target list if you haven't. And keep in mind, your target list, it's going to be moldable. I don't even know if that's a word. I just made it up. It's going to be, different throughout your process. So it's constantly changing. That's okay. As, programs maybe close the door, you're going to be adding programs that come to the list that you've never heard of. So there's a lot of flexibility that's going to happen. So this target list is really just to get you started, and then kind of see what happens from there. Make sure you are working on your highlight video. Again, I mentioned that MRA does offer, they do make highlight videos. Those are $99. You don't need to do that. You guys are totally good at making them on your own if you need to, but if you're just sitting here and you're like, I am not tech savvy, I want someone to do it, that's a pretty affordable price in the highlight video making world. So we try to be affordable with that. So if you're interested or need a highlight video, just shoot me an email and we can get that going. And then start emailing, start getting the email out. I would say frequency, once you start emailing, the next question I get is like, well, how often should I email coaches? When you're in club season, use your tournament schedule as a guide. That's usually will just kind of keep you on track. So I think it's good practice the week before, you're going to a tournament to get an email out to coaches to let you know what event you'll be at. And it gives the kids something to, they feel like they've got something to email about then. So use that as your guide. Just keep that frequency going, make sure that they're seeing your email and your name coming across. I will also, with this link, I'll send out all the different social media platforms that we have. My disclaimer on this. So keep in mind, when I'm at these tournaments, there is one Jess. I am a college coach, so I'm also recruiting for my college team when I'm at tournaments. I'm also typically coaching my club team, and I try to highlight and do as much social media as I can. I am one person. I am not a jerk. I am not trying to make anyone feel left out or anything like that, but I typically highlight, teams based on who's not playing when my team's playing. So if there's ever a time where you want your kid highlighted, just send me something. Don't, whine about it. I'm a pretty reasonable person, but you also have to keep in mind, I am one person. I do a lot of things within Alliance, and I cannot be 100 places at once. So, if there's something, if your kid had a really good play, please send it my way. I'm happy to share it, on social media. And then also keep in the back of your mind, like, nobody's getting a scholarship offer from, an Instagram story. So all the social media does is just, say, hey, college coaches, we're at this tournament. These are some of the amazing kids that we have, hopefully come and watch them play live. So that's really kind of the basis of what, the purpose behind social media is. And, for actually, some of our senior athletes right now that we've been able to, highlight in social media, it does open doors to, to colleges. So if there's anything that you guys ever want, posted, anything like award wise will typically go to Joy. So if your athlete receives any awards or honors, that will typically go to Joy Owino. Anything like that's video, that stuff will go to me, and I will post it on our Alliance recruiting social media. So I know that we're trying to add some additional ones just to kind of grow our footprint with that, but that does take some time. So I think that's it. That's kind of all I had, for tonight. So you guys will continue to just kind of get updates and emails, for me throughout the season with various things. But I'll open this kind of up to some questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post in the chat, and I will answer those. Nobody? I did that great of a job? All right. Okay, well, with that, everybody is free to go. And then, oh, I've got one question from Reagan. What's the question? When is first contact? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you want to go ahead and jump on? Athletes can email. So Reagan's question is, as a freshman, when can she email a coach? There are no rules on you guys emailing college coaches. The rule is just on when they can respond back to you. And so, as a freshman, if you want to get started in the recruiting process, by all means, go ahead, start emailing, but just know you're not going to get a lot of, stuff back, because most of the time, especially if you're emailing, Division I schools. I can tell you, I coach at an NAIA program, which is like a separate governing body from the NCAA. I do have freshmen that email me. I typically don't respond because I'm still recruiting 22. So I'm not even thinking about freshmen, but I'll forward them to my UA and get to them, eventually down the line. Typically your highlight video, that's the second question I got, anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes. You want to make sure that your best clips are at the beginning, like the first 20 to 30 seconds. Most of the time, that's all coaches are going to watch. So, they're trying to put your kid in 2 categories, like either, they're good enough for me to go watch in person, or they're not close to the level of, what we're recruiting. So anything like your best clips need to go at the very beginning of that highlight video. about 1 to 3 minutes is typically, that's good. You know, if you have a 4 or 5 minute, or nobody's going to watch that long. Great questions, Reagan. Anyone else? You are very welcome. All right, well, with that, I'll hang around here, but you guys are all free to go. So if anyone has any questions and they just kind of want to stick around for a little bit, I will hang on to this video, keep this feed going. But if not, enjoy your Monday and have a good New Year's. Kate, do you have any questions?